Jury convicts Harvey Weinstein of top charge in the retrial of his landmark #MeToo sex crimes case. Former movie mogul Harvey Weinstein was convicted Wednesday of one of the top charges in his sex crimes retrial, but acquitted of another, and jurors were as yet unable to reach a verdict on a third charge. The split verdict meted out a measure of vindication to his accusers and prosecutors, but also to Weinstein after the landmark case was thrown into limbo. The partial verdict came after an extraordinary day in which the jury foreperson indicated he felt bullied, and Weinstein himself urged the judge to halt the trial, declaring, "It's just not fair. My life is on the line, and you know what? It's not fair," the former Hollywood heavy hitter declared after making an unusual request to address the court. It's time to say this trial is over." Weinstein's initial conviction 5 years ago seemed to cement the downfall of one of Hollywood's most powerful men in a pivotal moment for the #MeToo movement. But that conviction was overturned last year, and the case was sent back for retrial in the same Manhattan courthouse. This time, a majority female jury convicted the former studio boss of forcibly subjecting Miriam Haley, a producer and production assistant, to a criminal sex act in 2006. But jurors acquitted Weinstein of another criminal sex act charge. It related to Kaja Sokolow, a former model whose allegations of forcible oral sex date to 2006 but were added to the case last year. And jurors were to continue deliberating Thursday on a charge that he raped another woman, hairstylist and actor Jessica Mann, in 2013. Under New York law, the third-degree rape charge carries a lesser penalty than the first-degree criminal sex act offense. Weinstein, 73, denies sexually assaulting or raping anyone. Jury deliberations had teetered Wednesday. The foreperson, who complained Monday that other jurors were pushing people to change their minds and talking about information beyond the charges, signaled to Judge Curtis Farber that he wanted to talk. He said words to the effect of, "I can't go back in there with the other jurors," Farber explained later. The discussion was closed to the press and public, but Farber later said the foreperson had expressed that he didn't want to change his position and was being pressured, with another juror saying something like, "I'll meet you outside one day," and yelling and screaming in the room. Weinstein lawyer Arthur Aidala urged the judge to declare a mistrial, saying the foreperson had expressed concerns for his safety. Prosecutor Matthew Colangelo, however, said the foreperson hadn't seemed afraid or apprehensive, just stubborn. The episode was the latest sign of strain among the jurors. On Friday, one of them asked to be excused because he felt another member of the group was being treated unfairly. Weinstein's lawyers asked unsuccessfully for a mistrial then and again after the foreperson expressed his concerns Monday. Weinstein and Me Too. The trial once again turned a legal lens and, to some extent, the public eye on the man whose reputed history of brutishness toward women propelled the #MeToo era that began in 2017. Weinstein's companies produced or distributed a string of Best Picture Oscar winners from 1997's The English Patient to 2012's The Artist, plus scores of other films with Academy Award-winning performances, screenplays, music, or costume design. He personally stood on the Oscar stage as a producer of 1999 Best Picture winner Shakespeare in Love. He also became a prominent Democratic donor. Then an Italian model told police in 2015 that Weinstein had abruptly groped her in his New York office. No charges ever resulted from her allegations, a decision that haunted the Manhattan District Attorney's Office 2 years later, when the New York Times and the New Yorker detailed decades of sexual harassment and sexual assault allegations against Weinstein. Those disclosures made #MeToo a global rallying cry for sexual misconduct awareness and accountability. Weinstein ultimately was charged, convicted, and sentenced to prison in New York and California. His California conviction stands, though he is appealing it. But New York's highest court awarded Weinstein a new trial, faulting the former trial judge for letting prosecutors buttress their case with testimony from Weinstein accusers beyond those whose accusations had led to charges. The retrial wasn't a simple repeat. Those additional accusers didn't testify at this spring's retrial, but it was expanded with new charges related to Sokolow, a Polish psychotherapist who said Weinstein forced oral sex on her when she was a 19-year-old model. And there were fresh bursts of tension in a case long full of graphic details and deeply personal testimony. A shaken Sokola was confronted with a passage from her private journal. Mann pointed indignantly at Weinstein as she walked past him in court. Haley cursed at him from the witness stand. The accusations and Weinstein's defense. Weinstein's accusers, who all worked in show business or wanted to, said he exploited his Tinseltown influence to dangle career help, get them alone, and then trap and force them into sexual encounters. In a complexity they spent days explaining, the women stayed in contact with Weinstein, saw him again, and at times accepted or requested invitations or favors, according to testimony and documents. Mann said she had a consensual relationship with Weinstein that began before and continued after he allegedly raped her. The accusers said they were trying to reckon with what had happened, attempting to suppress the assaults for their career's sake, or trying to keep the peace with an influential, well-connected, and irascible man. Weinstein chose not to testify. His attorneys portrayed his accusers as Hollywood wannabes and hangers-on who willingly hooked up with him to court opportunity, then recast the encounters as crimes years later to collect settlement funds and #MeToo approbation. The Associated Press generally does not name people who say they have been sexually assaulted unless they agree to be identified. Haley, Mann, and Sokola did so. Harvey Weinstein found guilty of sexual assault, acquitted on another charge in MeToo retrial. Former Hollywood mogul Harvey Weinstein faced a retrial after his 2020 sexual assault conviction was overturned. Harvey Weinstein, the former Hollywood mogul who pleaded not guilty in his New York sex crimes retrial, was found guilty of forcibly subjecting a woman to a criminal sex act in 2006 on Wednesday. The jury acquitted Weinstein on a second criminal sex act charge, and they are continuing to deliberate on a third charge of rape. Weinstein had been charged with raping a woman in 2013 and forcing oral sex on 2 others in 2006. For the third-degree rape charge, the former film producer could face a 4-year maximum. Each first-degree criminal sexual act count carries a maximum sentence of 25 years. In a statement obtained by Fox News Digital, Judah Engelmeyer, a spokesperson for Weinstein, said, "This trial was fair until we got to the jury deliberations. More than one juror had complained that other jurors had preconceived notions and are using their beliefs of Harvey's life as evidence of guilt. The foreman said he was threatened by other jurors. We believe there are serious appellate issues and they will be explored." Weinstein's rape retrial began in April, roughly a year after his 2020 conviction was overturned. He had originally been convicted on charges of third-degree rape and first-degree criminal sex act. On Friday, a juror attempted to be removed from the case, claiming that another juror was being treated in an unfair and unjust way. The judge told the juror to continue deliberations, and when the defense requested a mistrial, the judge denied it. On Monday, the foreperson of the jury told the judge that other jurors are pushing people to change their minds based on allegations against Weinstein that were not presented during the trial. Weinstein's team once again requested the judge declare a mistrial. The request was denied, but the judge said he would remind the jury to only consider evidence presented during the course of the trial. Weinstein opened up in a rare phone interview with Fox 5's Good Day New York and expressed regret. He admitted he acted immorally, but insisted that his behavior was never illegal or criminal. When asked about the women who testified against him, Weinstein's response pointed to his lawyer's claim that financial motives may have influenced their testimonies. "I think Arthur said they had 4 million reasons to testify," Weinstein said, as he referenced his attorney, Arthur Aidala. Weinstein continued to acknowledge the personal toll the trial has taken. "I have regrets that I put my family through this, that I put my wife through this, and I acted immorally," he said.
"I put so many friends through this and hurt people that were close to me by actions that were stupid. You know what I mean? But never illegal, never criminal, never anything."
The prosecution and Weinstein's defense began closing arguments on June 3rd, as both sides unveiled contrasting portrayals of Weinstein. The jury began deliberations on June 5. Prosecutors told jurors at his sex crimes retrial that Weinstein preyed on less powerful women he thought would never speak up. This was not a courting game, as Mr. Idala wants you to believe. This was not a transaction, prosecutor Nicole Blumberg told jurors as she referred to Weinstein's lawyer. This was never about fooling around, it was about rape. His defense team maintained that the sexual acts were all consensual, labeling them transactional. Idala accused prosecutors of attempting to police the bedroom and using Weinstein as the poster boy, the original sinner, for the #MeToo movement. The two sides took very different tones in their closing arguments, according to the Associated Press. His lawyer, Idala, veered into folksy jokes and theatrality, sometimes reenacting witnesses' behavior. Blumberg was more direct, urging jurors to focus on Weinstein's accusers and their days of grueling testimony. Weinstein pleaded not guilty to raping a woman in 2013 and forcing oral sex on two others separately in 2006. These allegations stem from a 2020 conviction. The case against Weinstein was retried and reshaped since an appeals court overturned the verdict. In a 4-3 decision, the court found that Weinstein's trial judge allowed prosecutors to call women who said Weinstein had assaulted them to testify, even though their accusations did not specifically relate to the entertainment mogul's charges. They tried to do it 5 years ago, and now there's a redo, and they're trying to do it again, Weinstein's lawyers told jurors during closing arguments at the film producer's rape retrial. Blumberg argued that Weinstein interpreted a sexual no as a cue to push a little bit more, and if they still say no, just take it anyway. He chose people who he thought would be the perfect victims, who he could rape and keep silent, the prosecutor said. He underestimated them. In April, Weinstein's team emphasized how the stress of his sexual assault retrial could lead to death during the second day of jury selection. His team requested the disgraced entertainment mogul be allowed to spend his nights at the hospital instead of Rikers Island for the entirety of his rape retrial. Weinstein, 73, claimed his prison stay was worsening his health conditions, which include chronic myeloid leukemia, heart issues, diabetes, obstructive sleep apnea, sciatica, and severe limitations on his ability to walk. The judge ruled the disgraced media mogul could stay at Bellevue Hospital for the entirety of his trial. Weinstein had previously begged for the retrial to be moved up due to his health conditions, but Judge Curtis Farber did not allow it. "I'm asking and begging you to switch," Weinstein previously told the judge in a rare direct address to the court in January. "I can't hold on anymore. I'm holding on because I want justice for myself." However, the trial began as planned on April 15 with jury selection. After a wild day in court, Weinstein jurors will resume deliberations. On Wednesday, the jury convicted Harvey Weinstein of one felony sex crime. The judge sent jurors home to cool off after their discussions devolved into threats and yelling. After a wild day in court, in which jurors in Manhattan convicted Harvey Weinstein of a felony sex crime, but were then sent home to cool off, they will return to court on Thursday to continue their deliberations. On Wednesday, the panel of 7 women and 5 men announced a partial verdict, convicting Mr. Weinstein on a single count of criminal sexual act and acquitting him of another count of the same charge. They have so far been unable to reach a consensus on a charge of third-degree rape. With the verdict, Mr. Weinstein, once a powerful Hollywood mogul, was convicted a second time on sex crime charges in New York. The jurors were ordered by the judge overseeing the trial, Curtis Farber of New York City Criminal Court, to continue deliberating on the final charge, which centers on accusations that Mr. Weinstein attacked Jessica Mann, an aspiring actress, in a Manhattan hotel room in 2013. They were sent home early on Wednesday after their deliberations had devolved into threats and yelling, according to the jury foreman, who complained to the judge that the other jurors were unduly pressuring him. The dramatic developments this week are another chapter in the years-long saga of Mr. Weinstein's criminal trials and civil lawsuits after investigations by the New York Times and the New Yorker found that Mr. Weinstein had mistreated women and that his company had covered it up. He was convicted of rape and a criminal sex act at trial in Manhattan in 2020. The verdict, which resulted in a 23-year prison sentence, was seen as a watershed moment for the #MeToo movement. He was subsequently convicted of sexual assault in a separate case in Los Angeles and sentenced to 16 years in prison there. He is appealing that verdict. Last year, New York's highest court overturned the Manhattan conviction, and the Manhattan District Attorney, Alvin L. Bragg, said his office would move to retry Mr. Weinstein. In April, after a new criminal sexual act charge was added to the case, jury selection for the retrial began. Mr. Weinstein's retrial has lasted nearly 2 months and featured many tense moments during witness testimony and as the lawyers tangled in arguments. At one point, Justice Farber lost his voice following a day of objections and sidebars that briefly derailed proceedings. At another point, he scrambled to find his gavel as a defense lawyer and a witness began shouting over one another. "I hadn't used it in 13 years, he said later. And shortly after the jury received the case last week, the friction that often develops among jurors as they deliberate began spilling into the courtroom. 3 jurors have requested to speak to the judge, 2 of them voicing concerns. On Friday, a juror said he had overheard others on the jury, in an elevator and outside the courthouse on Thursday, talking about another member of the group. What he had heard, he believed amounted to misconduct. Later, he unsuccessfully asked the judge to dismiss him from the case. And on Monday, the foreman flagged his concerns for the first time. He said he was being pressured to change his vote and that some of the other jurors were also talking about Mr. Weinstein's past. The juror said that he wasn't talking about Mr. Weinstein's past according to a transcript. He added, "I'm here for taking the decision myself for what happened at the time, in the moment." By Wednesday, his concerns had grown, and he again requested to speak to Justice Farber in private. The foreman said he had been met with verbal threats as he refused to change his vote. After the contentious interactions in the jury came to light, Mr. Weinstein addressed the court directly, telling the judge that it's not fair that they continue to discuss his case. "This is my life that's on the line," he told the court. "And you know what? It's not fair." The judge, trying to reassure him, said, "I'm not going to allow any injustice to happen to you." But he declined to declare a mistrial. Following the partial verdict, Justice Farber ordered everyone to return on Thursday to continue with the trial.